Are the Florida Gators on upset watch tonight? I don't think so, but we got a Locked On crossover episode with Trey Moore of Locked On Terps.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators or Locked On Terps. I am Brandon Olson with Locked On Gators. Joining me is Trey Moore from Locked On Terps. And Trey, we've got, first off, I have to hate you for the next about 18 hours, we'll say, from the time this comes out. So I got to hate you for a little bit, but we have number one Florida and the 4 seed Maryland Terrapins facing off tonight at 7:39 Eastern time. Winner goes to the Elite Eight. I don't know about you, but before the season, I was not really anticipating an Elite Eight run or this matchup at all, of course. But Florida right now, 6.5 point favorites. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But what does Maryland have to do in order to pull off the upset tonight?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it starts a lot with our star player, Derek Queen, who a lot of people are looking at right now, and it's kind of got the media recognition right now. We saw Pat McAfee's show talking about him. We saw a lot of different people talking about the buzzer beater that kind of brought March Madness alive a little bit. And to me, he's a really huge key. And I said he's the key to our tournament run. A talented freshman that is going to be a lottery pick in the NBA draft. To me, he's one of the biggest key for the Terps to have this kind of upset against this Florida team. He's been our best player all year, Big Ten freshman of the year, and a really talented freshman class in the Big Ten this year. So winning Big Ten freshman of the year is no slouch. So to me, one of the biggest keys is Derek Queen. And I've said it, your best player sometimes in March Madness has to have a March type of moment or 2 or 3 if you really want to make a run. And he, to me, is the biggest key in terms of a player playing well. Obviously, he kind of had a huge moment in the last round against Colorado State with the buzzer beater. But to me, he's the key to us. He gets us going. He's our best offensive player, and he's going to be one of the most talented players on the court.
Yeah, he's I don't know how else to phrase this, and I mean this in the most complimentary way possible. He's a demon. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, he's got 6 made threes on the year. 2 of them came in the last game. He had the I don't care. I know there's people that are like, oh, he may have traveled. I don't give a damn. People travel all the time. They don't blow the whistle. He still made the shot. And then the interview afterwards of, I'm from Baltimore. Like that's where the confidence comes from. It's incredible. He's one of those guys where you fall in love with him during March. I honestly, when I think about this game in general, he's the guy that I think of where I say, I don't know what Florida's plan is to slow him down. Because he's 6'10", so he's a little bit taller than Ruben Cheney, Florida center. But he's 250. So even if you put Alex Condon on him, you're giving up a bit of size, and Derek Queen is a built dude. Like he's a massive human being. So I look at him and I just think Florida has to figure out some way to stop him. But if he's going to shoot from 3 well, his last game he went 2 for 3 from 3. If he's going to shoot well from 3, then you can't just go, all right, let's just play zone and make him earn it. Because if he's on, then it's just tough to beat. And he's made 4 of his 6 threes this season in the past 3 games. It's just been he's a monster. It's going to be tough to stop him if you're Florida. I honestly don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think he's a tough spot, a tough stop, and he's a really interesting type of player with how he moves and how he goes about things. Really smart. Isn't the most athletic cat out there, but just the way he's able to score and those skill level he plays with really allows him to be a matchup nightmare for the Terps. And I think the next key for me to the Terps winning this game is on the defense side of the ball. I think Florida's got one of the best players in the country right now, and Clayton Jr. and the level that he's playing on. And to me, stopping him is got to be priority 1. You can't go under any screens against him. If we let him get going, I've said it on the Locked On Terps, it's going to be really tough for Maryland to beat this Florida team if we let him get going. To me, he kind of looks a little bit like this is a huge kind of comparison for him, but to me, he looks a little like Steph Curry right now, the way he's shooting the ball. And I know some other people have said that. But if you let Steph Curry get hot, if you let Clayton get hot, it's really tough to beat this Florida team. And to me, that's got to be the biggest key in terms of the defensive side of the ball, because he's the most scary matchup of a guy maybe we've played all year.
Yeah, I think that when you're defending Walter Clayton, it sucks because he's one of those guys where you can contest the shot well. It could look like a complete heave, but he's a threat to make it from anywhere. And I think that's the difficult part about guarding him. And again, yes, we know the Steph Curry comparison has picked up as of late. He's just got limitless range. He gets hot in a hurry, just complete microwave there. So I think that defending him, you kind of just have to hope that he just has an off night. Like, you kind of just got to go, hey, anybody else can't score on us, but him, like, he's going to get his buckets. He's going to get his shots. I do want you to tell at least my listeners, because I've given my thoughts about this Maryland Terrapins team. But obviously you are the expert in covering them, and my very generic or broad opinion has been great defensive team. But I think that because of that, people think that they're not a great offensive team. They are, in terms of offensive efficiency, they're still top 25 in the country.
Yeah.
They don't turn the ball over. I mean, freaking ever. I don't know what's wrong with them, but I hate them. They just never turn the ball over. They play fundamentally sound basketball. The only reason I think people don't think of them as a fantastic, well-balanced team is literally strictly because they don't shoot a lot of threes, but they get their efficient shots. They're quick with the shot clock. They have a quicker pace than Florida does on an average basis. And so I need you to give my listeners at least the in-depth look at this Maryland Terrapins team.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, it starts with the quote-unquote crab five is what the people are calling it. And it's Maryland's starting five. That's really going to give you 95% of the production of the team. It's not really anything off the bench, and there's really not much else besides the Maryland starting five. But I put the starting five up with anyone. And in terms of offensively, the starting five is really solid. Everyone averaged double digits, and then also it's the leading scoring starting five in the country as well, which is a pretty cool stat for the Maryland Terrapins. So there's a lot of pressure on those five guys, but you have three guards that you feel really good about, and Jacoby Gillespie's the point guard. He usually has around 5-6 assists. Rodney Rice is kind of the pure scorer of the group. And he's had a really good past 10 games. And then Celta Miguel's kind of, to me, the oddball. And I say he when he plays well, we're really tough to beat. When he shoots the ball well, we're really tough to beat. And so offensively, all three of those guys shoot the ball pretty well from the three-point arc as well. They're all above 37%. Gillespie's at 40. Celta Miguel's at 43. And so they all shoot the ball pretty well. And then Julian Reese is kind of our anchor down low. And then obviously Queen's right next to him. But Julian Reese has been at the Maryland program for 4 years. And he does a good job on the defense side of the ball. That's where he really makes his money and where he's going to be really good at. But he's also really solid on the offense side of the ball, especially has improved on the free throw line. So in terms of offensive side of the ball, the starting five is really solid. Like you said, it's still top 25 when it comes down to it. And they shoot the ball pretty well in terms of percentage from three. And they can score in different ways. But then after that, there's definitely a drop off, and there's not a ton that will give us a bench presence. There's not a ton of offense to come off the bench. And so that's kind of the biggest worry spot for the Terps. But in terms of offensive efficiency, the starting five is really almost as good as it gets in the country.
Yeah. You mentioned the crab five, which is what everybody has. Again, this Maryland team, they're not a Cinderella team. There's kind of no real Cinderella team this year. Contrary to what Stephen A. Smith says, this isn't the death of college basketball because we went 1 year without it. But they're kind of the team that has become a bit of America's sweetheart over there. Everybody's loving this Maryland Terrapins team. Crab Five, great nickname. So you've nailed those two things. I do have some questions about the Crab Five and how Florida can try to slow them down. We'll talk about that when we get back for this episode of Locked On Gators and Locked On Terrapins. If you ever check your bank account and you wonder, where did all my money go between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money. Start building your wealth. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks for making Locked On Gators and or Locked On Terrapins your first Locked On Terps, your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever in the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olson with Locked On Gators. Joining me is Trey Moore from Locked On Terps. And we were talking about the Crab Five before the break, and the Florida Gators fan base, the listeners, have very much gone into this mindset that I've been trying to talk them out of, where they say, just get them in foul trouble. And the issue with that is that for some reason, they don't foul. I don't know what it, but this is what I mean when I say they play fundamental basketball. Yeah. They don't foul. So my counter point, my counter strategy has been, well, they don't like to go to their bench. Florida, in order to win this game, I think one of the biggest things they need to do, get out, run. We know that Maryland's offense can go up tempo. Like I mentioned before, they're on average a bit quicker than Florida. So we know they can go up tempo. But if you make this game up tempo, Florida's shooting threes and hopefully hitting their threes, Florida does go to their bench quite a bit. And so if Florida can just constantly rotate in fresh legs and keep Maryland running, I feel like that is maybe the best strategy when people talk about the Crab Five being a very good starting five in college basketball this year.
Yeah, that's our weakness right there. And the biggest concern I was walking into March and playing in the Big Ten tournament. You play a lot of games and not a lot of days, and so there's not a lot of rest. And so these teams that have a little bit more depth than us, that play a little bit more guys than us, I'm always have been scared that those teams are going to be able to outplay us in the key moments, especially down the stretch. For the Terps. And yes, if we get in foul trouble, it's definitely a scary thing. It's easier said than done because we've learned how to not foul, because it's been such an important part of this team is keeping everyone in the lineup. I think when we started the year, Queen especially and Reese would get into foul trouble more often than they should, and Kevin Willard quickly made sure that got switched. But that's definitely something that's going to be really big for Florida, is just being able to filter through different guys and giving different guys rest, because down the stretch that could play huge, because Maryland's not going to play a lot of guys. Like in the last game against Colorado State, the guys were playing all the starting lineup played upwards of 35 minutes. So it is tough kind of for the Terps, and it's a tough brand to kind of win that way, but we've been able to do it. And I think one of the questions Terps fans have is, who do we have to worry about outside of Clayton Jr.? We know Clayton Jr. is going to be really good, but who has to step up in this game outside of Clayton Jr. that Terps fans should be worried about?
Yeah, I think the guy that I've been clamoring for this tournament so far has been Elijah Martin. He's not going to be a 30-point scorer, or more likely than not going to be a 30-point scorer, but he gets the transition buckets. He's the best on-ball defender on this team, in my opinion. I know Will Richard is the guy that they usually say, hey, Will, you go guard him. But Elijah Martin's the best on-ball defender, in my opinion here. I think that he's got great jump shot, although he's doesn't shoot a ton, but he's got the transition buckets. He knows how to get to the rim. He's been that figure that I've looked at this whole tournament, because he was with Florida Atlantic when they had their Final Four run a while back, and he was there for it. He knows how to do it. He's the guy where you look at, you listen to interviews, you watch them play, and he seems to be kind of the stabilizing presence. Alex Condon, I'm going to be very interested to see what their plan is with Alex Condon against Derek Queen, is what I think the matchup that we'll see quite a bit. And I'll be very interested to see how that works out, just because Alex Condon one of the few big men that can actually do work off the dribble and is one of the better distributors amongst big men in the country right now. Doesn't turn the ball over a ton. He's been a little cold these past couple games. Hopefully he'll get back on track. But I think that Alex Condon, Derek Queen, I watched this and I'm like, all right, Alex Condon versus Derek Queen, Walter Clayton versus Jacoby Gillespie. Jeez. And I'm like, all right, there's two matchups there that I watch, and I'm like, those will probably decide the game with those two coming off, or how those two matchups pan out.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And some of the weakness behind Queen that scares me a little bit that Florida could definitely take advantage of is, like I said, he's not an awesome athlete. He shows potential on the defense side of the ball sometimes, but where his kind of concerns sometimes lie is defensively. And so sometimes that against a Florida team that obviously is really good offensively, that's something that kind of worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that, especially when you look at Alex Condon, I mean, he's an inch taller than Derek Queen, but I do think that Alex Condon's length really helps out, and his ability to stretch out to the perimeter. Derek Queen and Julian Reese, both very good defensive rebounders. They don't allow a ton of offensive rebounds themselves. And I think that when you have Alex Condon that can step out to the perimeter, and he will be at the top of the key a lot, that's where Florida's going to give him the ball, let him dribble, try to hit a backdoor cut. You'll see that, and you'll see either Derek Queen or Julian Reese will have to step out and hopefully at that point be able to actually attack the interior a little bit. But I do think that getting either Derek Queen or Julian Reese out and then saying, hey, Ruben Cheney, like, you've just got to do battle on the boards, get some help from another guard maybe coming in. But I look at that as how Florida can try to exploit Derek Queen. I'm looking to see a lot of screens from this Florida team, which dribble handoffs are a thing that they do a disgusting amount of times, if we're being honest. But dribble handoffs to try to get just do everything you can to make Maryland's starting five work for it. Make them fight through screens, make them go around dribble handoffs, make them just constantly defend you. And if you get a switch with Walter Clayton against Derek Queen, like, he's going to shoot a three. I'll tell you this right now. If you get that switch, he's going to shoot his three.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be the focal point for the Florida Gators in this one in order to walk away with a win that hopefully doesn't come close to stopping my heart this time.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you kind of see as a key that's a weakness potentially of the Gators that could come back to bite them later on potentially if they end up losing this game, or they look back on and say we should have done that better?
I think it's got to be the interior right now. You look at Norfolk State. Norfolk State greatly outscored Florida with points in the paint. But also a lot of that came in the second half when Florida was already up 20 plus. And if you're a team that could shoot threes and you've got a 20-point lead over a team that can't shoot threes and is looking for layups, I'll let you take a layup and I'll shoot a three and then we'll call it a day. So I don't fault them for that much. But against UConn had a great offensive strategy. They kept getting the switches because Florida switches a ton. And so they kept getting the switches that they wanted, and they would attack those switches. And a lot of the way that they did it was to get down low, or you get a switch where Alex Condon, Ruben Cheney, Micah Hanlocked, and one of Florida's three very talented bigs step out to the perimeter. And then it's your wings, your bigs against Florida's guards down there. And so I think that's been something that's been a major concern for me throughout this tournament and even leaking back into the SEC tournament. I mean, Missouri had a smaller lineup than Florida the entire game. And offensive rebounds, Missouri did a hell of a job. They had more offensive rebounds than Florida did. And so it's got to be that. And Florida's they don't turn the ball over a ton, but they just have stretches where they turn it over a ton. Like against UConn, they finished with, I think it was 12 turnovers total. They had 5 in the first 4 minutes of the game. So it's just they have these stretches where they turn it over a lot. And I do think that Maryland's a good enough defensive team and consistent enough offensive team where if you turn the ball over a ton and you don't crash the boards and they get a lead, they are a team that's going to be tough to fight and claw back to and take the lead over from them.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think the turnovers are something that kind of goes both ways. In terms of Maryland hasn't turned over the ball a ton over the last couple of games. And that's something that you got to keep up if you want to beat Florida Gators type of team. You're going to have to keep that up. And one player, Queen, some games he has a lot of turnovers if you look back at the stat score. And that, to me, that's going to be a really big part of the game.
Yeah, very much a thing that I'm hoping Florida can attack with. And yeah, so I'm hoping for that one. But we are about to get to our predictions for this game against 7:39 Eastern Time when we get back with this episode of Locked On Gators and Locked On Terps. We are all about the stats here, if you have not been able to tell by our conversation, because numbers don't lie. When it comes to the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X, the numbers are on an MVP level. With the ability to tow up to 8,500 pounds, it can quite literally carry the whole team, plus the gear, wherever you need to go. It's powered by a twin-turbo V6 engine, delivering the strength and performance to handle highways, back roads, and everything in between. And with room for up to 8 people, the Armada Pro 4X is built for big crews, big adventures, and even bigger memories. Take your adventures to new heights in the all-new Nissan Armada Pro 4X. Learn more at nissanusa.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the Bracket Breakdown. Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup. Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free. It's your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Gators or Locked On Terps your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free wherever you listen to the podcast and on YouTube. I am Brandon Olson with Locked On Gators. This is Trey Moore with Locked On Terps. And Trey, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording this. Florida opened as 5.5-point favorites on Sunday night, or at least that was the first time I saw a line was 5.5-point favorites. Now 6.5-point favorites for the Florida Gators. And I got to ask your thoughts on that line right now.
Yeah, I mean, here's how I see it. Maryland hasn't really lost too many games by more than 5 points this year. They've only lost one game by 6 points to Washington early on in the year. So when you go back and look at all the games, even when Maryland loses, they keep it pretty close. They keep it pretty tight. So to me, I can see the line movement and I see why it's happening. Florida's really good. But I'd also, if I was looking at the spread, definitely would kind of look at the Terps and say that they haven't lost by more than 5 all year or 6 all year. So the Terps have been really good, at least at keeping things really close and at least making it to the last minute or two of the game where a team can't depend on an easy win against Maryland. Like that hasn't happened all year. We haven't gotten blown out. We haven't lost by 10. That hasn't happened this year as a Terp team. So I saw the line, and Florida's probably the best team we've played all year. Some people thought Michigan State was the best team we played this year. Florida's better than Michigan State. I'll tell you that. And so I think it makes sense, but I also would say, look at some of Maryland's past scores and say, we haven't lost a game more than 6 points. So I definitely think it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned, because I have Maryland's losses pulled up, and it's lost by 4 to Marquette for the Florida Gators listeners that don't know. Lost by 4 to Marquette, who on KenPom, 29th team in the country. Lost by 5 to Purdue, who on KenPom, 16th team in the country. Lost by 6 to Washington, who on KenPom, 104th, and that's the worst loss by a large margin. And then lost by 4 to Oregon, 28th in the country. Lost by 2 to Northwestern in overtime, 45th in the country. Lost by 3 to Ohio State, 37th in the country. Lost by 3 to Michigan State, 7th in the country. Lost by 1 to Michigan, and they are 20th in the country. But also, the overwhelming majority of those losses came either away or the neutral site game against Michigan. Home losses were Michigan State and Marquette, which Marquette was the 4th game of the year, which you mentioned earlier. Earlier in the years when they had more trouble with fouls and it was a little rougher there. And then since then, Michigan State, great team. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be the homer and take Florida to cover. But I'm not going to feel confident in it at all. Like this, again, I think that this Maryland team, really good defensively. I think that they are very consistent and efficient offensively. I think that the way it would shake out would be Florida up 5-ish with a minute left and just literally just win by 7. I do not look
Mhm.
at this game. I know there's a lot of Florida Gators fans that do say, "Hey, this should be a blowout." You're looking at a team that shoots a lot of threes versus a team that doesn't shoot a lot of threes, and so that should be a deciding factor. It might be a deciding factor, but also I'm looking at a Florida Gators team that has had games where they don't connect from 3 the way they should, and they have to really rely on hammering the paint. So I will say I think Florida can cover the spread, but I think that it's going to be by 7 or 8 points total. I do not think this is going to be, and sure, I could look like an idiot either way, but I don't think this is going to be a double-digit win for Florida. I think it's going to be a close one, and also it's March. Things get crazy here. I'm not going to overlook a single team or talk down on them here, especially Sweet 16. Like you don't get here by luck, right? You get here because you work your tail off and you grind and you get there. So I think Florida will cover, but barely. And the over under right now is set at 156.5 points. Trey, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would lean towards the over. Just two pretty good offensive teams, and Florida shooting a lot of threes, and then Maryland having some really solid offensive players and an efficient offense as well. Like you said, I think I would lean towards it, but I don't know if I have a real strong feeling about either side of the total because I can definitely see it being like more of a grit out battle than people expected as well. So I'll lean towards the over just with some of the offensive players we see on the floor for Florida and Maryland, some of those scores they've put up this year and the efficiency that they're playing at. But I could definitely see that going either way.
Yeah, that one I'm taking the that one I feel cool with. That one I'm like, hey, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm fine with it. But that one, taking the over in it, I do think that I don't care to give exact scores that much, so I'm not going to force anybody to do that. I do think that it'll be mid low 80s to mid high 70s will be the score difference there. So at least when I look at that, I'm like the 156.5 coverable or should be or hopefully getting the over because I already did place my bet on it. So hopefully gonna get the over on that one. But I do think this will be a relatively again Florida's an explosive offense, pretty consistent. Maryland, very consistent, not as explosive, but very consistent offense. And just looking at how Florida's become, they fouled a bit more in recent games, so could slow the pace down a little bit. But free throws for Maryland, which they're not a bad free throw shooting team at all. Team average is 75%, so considerably better than Florida's 71. So I look at that and I say the over should hit or hopefully will hit. Trey, if you have any last words, let's get that before we get game time tonight at 7:40 Eastern time.
Yeah, I mean, last words are just I think it'll be a close game, and I think it'll be a battle towards the end. And I'm hoping the Terps get a little bit more of the special March Madness moment that they got against Colorado State. But I think it's two good basketball teams that are going to go back and forth. But I'm excited for the game.
Yeah, should be one hell of a game. Was by the way the end of the Colorado State game. I was getting ready to record my show. Colorado State hit the 3, and I was like, all right. I had prepared for Colorado State or Maryland. Colorado State hit 3, and I was like, all right. Guess we're gonna go with Colorado State. And then of course Derek Queen happened, and I was like, I'm just gonna delete that real quick and just go right back to it. But thank you so much, Trey. This is Trey Moore with Locked On Terps. I am Brandon Olson with Locked On Gators. I'll be going live right after the game. Trey, are you planning on Friday show going live right after?
Yeah, I'll have a Friday show in the morning out with whatever happens in the game.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, we got 2 people on screen right now. One of us is going to be heartbroken in a little bit. So we'll see that. Tune in to find out who that was. I'm Brandon Olson. This is Trey and Moore, and we'll see you all next time.